It's good to see you all. Please do say hello. It'd be great to see you. Coming just a little early, I'm going to just let you know a couple of things right off the bat. Hugo is in Portugal right now, which is his home country, and I will be meeting him in Ireland, in Dublin, and then for an Ireland tour through a lot of September. I'm looking forward to that. But speaking of Portugal, and you guys have asked forever and ever and ever, I just want to pop up this little link. Hugo and I are doing a Portugal, Spain tour next May, the 11th through the 26th. It's like 16 days. We have pulled out all the stops to show you the most amazing places, not only in Portugal, Lisbon, and all the things in between, on the Douro River with a wine riverboat, and then heading off into Spain to do Cordoba, uh, Granada, and Valencia, but Barcelona with Sagrada Familia. And I've got this link right there. So if you want to screenshot it or just take a picture or write it down real quick, you can do that. I just wanted to say that right on the top. We would love to have you come. That's where the tour information is located, there on my personal website, and I wanted to share that with you. But also this morning, I went out to my garden, and I have to share with you some of these pictures that I took. So you know that Hugo and I have been gardening as much as we could at almost 9,000 feet here on the mountain. That is challenging, but this is the best year that we have had. So marigolds and moss rose and a lot of California poppies, which are, those California poppies are still coming up from seed from 4 years ago, maybe 5 summers ago now. And they are so abundant that I actually have to pluck them out of the ground in places where I don't want them, because I want other flowers growing. So zinnias came up, and the marigolds, those were volunteer marigolds, by the way. I didn't plant those. They came up on their own. Super variety of sunflowers this year. In the back, I don't have a picture, but I have one Russian mammoth sunflower. The head on it is massive. The zinnias came up. They're doing really good, as you can see. And this is my vegetable garden this year. We've had a really good success with peppers and with zucchini and squash and even beans this year. My God, the best beans I've had in forever. So it's been a lot of fun. Look at this sunflower variety. It's, when I look at it outside, it's almost black when I look at it, but when I take a picture, it's this really, really dark red. It is really, really cool. And then this is, of course, this is near the back. This is near our garden. More zinnias and snow and summer and iris. You guys were so gracious. Many of you sent us iris, and we have really enjoyed those immensely. My nasturtiums. I have a friend in Texas that just is, breaks her heart that she can't get them to grow like I can here, but they do so well on the mountain. The cosmos come up and do really well. And here's a little combination of sunflowers and cosmos and nasturtiums. My hollyhocks, this is the first year I've had hollyhocks. They're a biennial, so it takes them a whole full year to develop, and then it's the next year that you reap the reward. And we sure reaped that reward this year. It has been so much fun. Sorry, I'm going the wrong direction here. This is one of our little garden paths that we have. Autumn Rock in the distance, for those of you that don't know, Autumn Rock is that beautiful rock formation and the name of our ranch. And by the way, we do have the house for sale. So if you're looking for an escape on a mountain in a beautiful, beautiful area, just contact me. I would love to sell you my house. My God, these sunflowers they're just looking amazing. I hope you enjoy seeing this. This is our front garden. Those aspen trees, I planted those 3 summers ago. They have grown really, really well. Of course, this is aspen country, so they look great. Every time I see those California poppies, I remember the poppy fields in California. It's beautiful. Shasta daisies, of course, petunias grow really well. We have a lot of things like sedums that will grow really well here as well. And those are 2 of my sedums there. One of them with kind of a purple blossom and a purpley lavender blossom. And yeah, more nasturtiums, so many good things. I just really get excited about it. I think that's it for today. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you my garden because it's pretty cool. My reason for visiting with you today, and I'm just going to look and see. I see some bunch of friends here. Hey, you guys, Madeline and Cindy and Joanne and Ann and Hugo. My gosh, hey, Hugo's. I just said hello. I don't know if you were in earlier, but I just said Hugo's in Portugal with our new niece who's 7 months old, and Hugo made a quilt for her and she is loving it. She's just all bright-eyed. And he also took over his first quilt, which is really big. It's like 84 inches square for his mom. So he's done a really great job. All right, so my goal today is to share with you my method for doing marking on a quilt. And I want to tell you, when it comes to marking, chalk rubs off. So I don't care how much time you spend with chalk. If you're free motion quilting, it's not easy to deal with. I also find that the line for the chalk is fatter, so I have to deal with the fatness of that line. Pencil doesn't come out very well, although I have tried to use OxyClean and stuff like that to get rid of pencil, and that will work, but it's still very difficult. And I'm just going to talk to you about how I mark. It is revolutionary. And I'm just going to go through these little videos that I've created for you, and then I'm going to be watching for questions. So I'm going to get started with video number one. There's 4 little videos here that will make sense. And the first thing I want to do is teach you how to draw a feather, because many of you may have never seen this. So before I get to marking, I'm going to show you my method of going about how to do marking feathers. So before we start marking a quilt, I think it would be wonderful if we learned how to draw some quilting designs. And I want to focus on the quilted feather. Now, when I draw this for you, I want you to know this is not exactly how I will quilt it. It's how I'm going to draw it, but I am drawing it in such a way that it will be continuous quilting. So what I like to do is I like to draw just a line. I'm going to call this the top and somewhere here the bottom. And I'm just going to give myself a nice little gentle swoop for a feather, just simply doing something like that. Now, the next shape that I want you to be able to draw, I'm just going to grab this scrap piece of paper, is a half a heart. And I like to have this part of the heart be elongated, except I want this heart, this is the right half, I will want that to be on the left side of the line and the other half on the other. This will make sense very quickly. All right, so I'm going to start with a half a heart. It's going to be kind of big, but I'm going to go the left side of the heart on the right side of the line, and then come back up to anywhere you want. There's no math involved in this. You can, but I never have because my feathers are more free. And now I want you to notice how, like a plant or a spray, a fountain spray, this line, when it comes in, don't let it come like that. That's not the direction we want it to come. We want it to circle around and come down. Now reach up and continue to do that, keeping them all about the same size. And look how beautiful that is. Notice I am getting smaller and smaller just to make it tapered, but I am going to show you some other options as we go. I like how little that got. Didn't that look pretty? All right, so now I want to do a spine, another spine. You can do this right after the first spine, or you can do it now. See, I'm going very carefully. And notice that once again, it is narrower and slightly wider. All right, so now the half heart is going to be the right side of a heart on the left side of the line. The right side of a heart on the left side of the line. Now, there's going to be a tendency to just build this kind of in that direction, but I can expand this, fill in some of this space. I don't want to fill in all this because I want this one to feel like a tapered feather. But go ahead and reach around. So notice where I'm starting. I'm not starting here. I'm coming over the hump and coming down. And see how far down I came on that. All right. Each time, I'm going to just do there. Look how beautiful this looks. Had a little bump on my mat there. Not to worry. I think you should just get some paper and try to draw this. Now, what do I do here? Just finish like a teardrop. Come down to the start. And on this one, the same thing. Just let it taper and come down. And if you want them to meet, you can have them meet right there. Doesn't that look beautiful? All right, that's easy to do. That's the first, most simplest feather that I can draw for you. Now I want to show you how I would quilt this. I would start on that first line. I would come down to the bottom, and then I'm going to work my way up the feather. And now I'm going to have to, I've got several options. I can come backtracking and come up and over, backtracking, come up and over, but you will find working your little feather nodes, little feather bits, working those from the bottom of the feather to the tip of the feather is much easier than working down as you go. All right, another option would be, of course, starting coming down, going around, down, work your way up, backtracking on the stem, bump, come backwards, stop here, do the next one. So you're backtracking only short distances from here to here and around. So once I'm here, I need to go up, then I'll come around and over and down, backtrack to here, and you get the idea. That means there's less backtracking. Well, there's no backtracking on the long bits, and there's only a little backtracking here. Now, get ready, because in the event that you were planning to do maybe some stipple filler like this, just to put things down, especially if it's this, then this particular, and this looks really good to, to press down the background and let the flower pop up. But if you were to do that and planning that, here is a trick that I absolutely love. You could, here we go again, start at the top, come down, reach around, all the way down, backtrack, come up and over, and instead of backtracking this guy, stipple a little bit to here, then do this orb, then track up, over, around, stipple a little bit till you get here, and then around and down. And you can see what's happening is that now I don't have any duplicate backtracking at all because I'm using the stipple to travel. And then when I finish all of my feathers and it's time to do the stipple, I just come back in and stipple, but I just stipple, next to and up close to what's already there. And it all blends together and you would never know that was the trick. How about that for fun? All right, so now we came down, we go up one side, however you choose to go up. But when you get to that last little feather, you're at the point, you travel down the other side, so you're not stopping, and then you do the other side with whatever method that I've just shown you to work your way to the top. And that's one full continuous feather. Honestly, once you learn to just draw these, you could do simply work on a quilt by putting a free form feather on the machine, put your quilt sandwich under the machine, and then just do a free form feather, by You can come down. You could then do, oh, I wanted to remind you this. You could also separate your feathers if you didn't want to backtrack. So you also have this option. But the point is, you can learn to do free motion feathers just as you go, just stitching them, right? I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit so it may not look perfect. I'm here. I know I need to not try to come smoothly back down to the other side to get the spine. The spine, in this case, I closed it up. Make a big one right there, okay? It doesn't have to be small. Over the hump. Come back that way. Now I'm going to start working my way in. Now get ready for this. I'm finding I'm running out of real estate, and this is where a Ricky feather really comes into play. I'm going to come part way up and do a small one, come around, do a little bigger one, but you see how I'm making them dip over and fill into that space? And now I'm back into here and can bring that in like this. If I'm just drawing the design because I'm going to mark it, I can draw it with the half hearts the way I showed you, and I can still, even with these big ones, I can come in, do a little half heart, do a little bigger half heart, and work my way out. And look at that feather. I mean, I think it looks even more fun, perhaps, and even more organic than this guy. This one looks a little stiff to me. It's absolutely gorgeous, but there's just me. I love whimsy. I love when plants grow and they start growing really, really well, and then a little bit of water lack so they don't grow, and then they take off again. To me, that feels fun and organic. So that gets you started on doing a feather in the most basic way. But I want to continue on this because the next step takes us into deeper, more curly Q feathers. And I'm not going to take you to the nth degree because I don't want to overwhelm you, but I think that you will enjoy seeing this too. So here is number 2. Again, I'm going to continue to watch for questions. Right now we're just drawing, but then I'm going to do the marking. I'm going to do the quilting as well. So here is part 2. The next little thing I want to teach you is how to deal with a swoopier S. For example, let's start the top of the feather here and come in like that so that we've got a really, really swoopy S to deal with. All right, so that's the top of my feather. Let me do some half hearts. Let me do something. I'm going to start pretty darn big over here to come down into there. I'm going to even reach, well, watch this, because I want to fill up this space. I'm even going to reach way over here, and I'm going to arch all the way over this guy. Look at that. And I'm going to do another one. Oops, I hate it when I have a little thing on my mat. There we go. Let's come into there. Notice that I let it come a long way, and it's really coming down. I don't want to come bring it and bump it into that area. Now, here's where we start using our little trick with smaller things. I'm going to start here, bring that down. I'll do a little one here. Why not? Start working my way out with that. And this is a deep curve. Even that one's a deep curve. Now, instead of starting here, I'm going to reach here and bring it over so it's really getting close to that one. And look, I can now start making them larger because I have this space to fill. Remember, I also want to bring them down as they come in, not at a kind of a straight angle there. And now I can emulate that. Now, because of my paper, I'm fixing that shape. This is a great way just to fill a block if you're trying to do that. This is looking really fabulous. All right, I'm going to speed this up and finish this part. And there we are at the top. Now you already know, let's do that spine. This one's going to be a little more challenging because I've got to be really accurate right here. Not too bad. Just take your time. You notice I'm not going fast. All right, now we're going to do this other side. And I did a little bit of a fill-in for an S here, but how am I going to treat that area? Well, let's just see how it goes. I'm going to start and finish this guy over here. Ooh, boom. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just do a teardrop to get started and start bringing this in like so. This will be feeling really normal, but I have to give room for everything. So I'm going to kind of split the distance in here, maybe 2/3, 1/3, because I know it's going to get smaller as it goes up. You're going to see I'm going to work my way into a predicament coming up very soon, and it's going to start happening right about here. So how about I do a little guy, I do another little guy, and I even reach that over, and now I can extend these so they're even bigger as they come around that corner. But at some point, I need to stop the big and start now tapering it to something that's a bit smaller. So here I go, bringing that in. And you know what? Anytime you want to put a little guy in, you could do that and then wrap around that little guy and make it a little bigger and then bring it smaller again. So this is all arbitrary, but like I said earlier, it's organic and it looks really, really good. So there's how I deal with that kind of thing. On many, many traditional quilt blocks, when you see a curve, let's just do one again. When you see a curve like this, they will oftentimes, because the curve, like on the inner of a circle, you will find that they have to start, in order to fit, they have to start to get fatter like this. And that is okay, all right? It's not that it is nothing wrong with that. But look how this looks compared to letting some little growth happen where they get small and build their ways back out in this area. So those are just some things that I like on drawing feathers. So, how we doing? Are you liking this? I hope so. I'm going to do one more because I want to show you how I deal with a corner on a border. And that's going to be the last of the drawing, but I hope this will give you tons of inspiration. Again, if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer. And if you don't, I'm happy to, because I must be sharing something that you like. So here's number 3. Now, oftentimes we'll have a miter corner on a border, which would be maybe a straight seam right here. On my Rhapsody quilts, they tend to have kind of a curvy seam, but it doesn't really matter any way that you do this. The point is that when I'm doing a feather for a border, I start working from the corner, and I'm only going to work on one side because I can flip it over, trace the other side, or even on the copy machine, I can do the reverse to do it. Personally, I prefer to draw it all, but I like to find an anchor spot. So on this, I'm going to start with what I'm going to think would be a little teardrop type thing, and I might actually go ahead and do another one so that they're on top of each other, and then I'm going to do one more that I know is going to be, there's kind of my half heart. I'm going to start bringing these guys around like this. I am making this up as I go, you guys. This is not planned, but I'm using the same elements that I've already taught you. If you ever want to add something fun, like a little, watch this, a little scroll, and then backtrack with a little pointy, and then come in. You see what I just did there? It's just going to add a little flourish. I don't do a lot of that, but you certainly could. And Now let's just finish that with some small bits. And I'm going to bring this one in like this and start this one around like that. And I'm now going to decide that this is where I'm going to have my feather come. So while this is kind of the hub, remember how we did top to bottom? I've rotated this just because it's easier for me to draw. I'm going to start my feather here, swoop, swoop, and bring it right into that spot there, because that's where I want that to go. I can put this in at pretty much any time. I could have done this line after I did these first three, but now you have all of the guidance that you need to continue. So I want to talk about splitting off in a Y. This is a good place to do it. If I had come down and split up and then came back down so that I've got this little Y, all right, this line would go away because I would do down, up, down. That would be one side. Then I'm going to work my way into this just as if it was another spine. All right, and remember, I prefer to draw going up, so I don't want to wrap that top. I'm going to do kind of a split the difference right in the middle of that so that I can wrap that this direction. And then I will do this one, working bottom to top. This is the bottom, up to the top. All right, so now that's beautiful, right? And now, obviously, the only thing I need to do to create this border is to flip it over. And in this case, I could rub, or you can go to a light table, and you're going to end up with a beautiful finished design. So I think that's beautiful. You can see how to create a beautiful design. And I draw directly on freezer paper because it seems to give me the size I want, and I've got it in my room. It's not because of the properties of the wax, it's just because I have it available. I did those first examples on regular printer paper just because I wanted to show you. But recently on one of Hugo's quilt, I wanted to design his border. So I measured the border, and then I came to the half, and I did half of the border from the center out, knowing that I could mirror image that to the other side so I could create the length of the border that I need for my specific quilt. I think stencils are great, but they're not always going to fit my quilt. And one of the things I love about drawing my own feathers, they're unique. I can make them fit special little areas like you just saw, and I do it. So one of the questions is, do I draw directly on the quilt? No, my entire purpose of talking to you today is how I mark my quilt, rock your world with something that many of you will not have seen before. But when I want to do that kind of intricate drawing, marking, and quilting, I don't want to use chalk or pencil, and I do not want to trace. I do not become a better quilter by tracing, and tracing takes a lot of time. So this next section, it's gonna, I hopefully open your eyes. I hope it will just be something that you will remember and love to do. I want to say, I can and will do improvisational feathers with no marking or drawing, and that makes me happy. But if I have a more formal quilt, like the ones you're going to see at the very, very end, I want those feathers to be mirrored and perfect and the same number of everything. So that requires marking. I draw it on paper and then take a look at what I do next. So when I've got a very specific design like this, you know it's got to be marked. And usually people go to a light table and spend time tracing. But you know what? Tracing is not going to improve your quilting skills. And you can mark this by using water-soluble thread, which is what I'm about to do. Now, I also want you to know the product that I have here. This is no longer the paper. This is my Ricky Tim's Stable Stuff Poly. And this product, it comes in 50 sheets, 8.5 by 11, which means you can put it through a printer. It also comes on a roll if you're doing applique and you need a larger, bigger stabilizers. It's on a roll that's 20 inches wide by 10 yards. So this is a polyester-based stabilizer, which means it can live inside your quilt forever and ever. It's not a paper stabilizer, it's polyester-based, and that means whenever this is immersed in water, it will not dissolve, but it will soften, and you're going to see that process as I go along. Now, I took my paper design that you saw me draw, I put it through the copy machine, one sheet at a time. Do not stack these, just put them one sheet at a time and copy. If you're doing like a border, you might need to copy this section, then copy the next section, copy the next section with a little bit of overlap, and then you assemble them by using a glue stick, and that will be good for a larger border. But for today, I'm just doing a regular one sheet just to show you how the process works. Now, on a fine, maybe a thin, light, this is very fine fabric. If I was going to quilt that, I might not want my marking to be so dark. Most fabrics, it won't matter, but you can change the setting on your copy machine to make it lighter. So I'm going to use the lighter version. This yellow is actually going to ultimately be my back, and I'm actually going to be quilting it on a little heftier and a little darker yellow. So another thing, if it matters which direction this design goes on your quilt, if it matters, you will need to use the reverse mirror for the copy machine so that you get the opposite. For today, it didn't matter, but if you do need to flip it for your area, then do that at the copy stage. You've drawn it to go on your quilt, but you would flip it because we are going to put this design on the back of the quilt top. This is the quilt top. You would have seams on the back side here, on the back side if you have got seams, and you might be fitting this on a blank block in between seams. So if you've got a seam and a seam, you would know where to put this. And again, you can't see the design on the front side of the quilt, but we're going to mark it. I'm going to mark this by quilting this design exactly how I showed you, which is to start at the top of the feather, kind of the small part, do the spine all the way down, and then I'm going to do one side of feathers. When I get to the top, I'm going to come down the spine on the second side and then come up the other side. So the good thing is that I've got water-soluble thread in the top and the bobbin. I'm going to pull my thread up to the top so that I can have no mess on the back. And by the way, water-soluble thread, you never want to lick it, okay? Sometimes we lick our threads to thread a needle. You don't want to do that. So I'm just going to simply follow this line. And see, I'm just going to get a little bit better vantage point for it. What happens if you miss the line? Well, it's water-soluble thread, so it's going to go away. All right, now it's time to start doing each of the little feather parts. So here we go, and I'm going to go into fast speed. And when you get to the top of that feather, take it back down to the bottom Now I'm going fairly fast. Feel free to go a little bit slower. Go at your speed. You're practicing at this point. All right, I have done this with water-soluble thread on top and the bottom, and now you can see, I can clearly see my markings on this. And I realize I'm using light thread, but you can see it, and you can easily do this, you guys. Here's the thing, it is not that time consuming. I find it more time consuming to be trying to trace with markers that I either have to hope will go away with water. I know the water soluble thread will go away with water, or I'm using pencil that will not easily go away, or other markers that may not show up on the fabrics. Your thread will always show up on the fabric, so that is exactly how I go about marking my quilt. Now, I do want to I'm not going to do this today, but I want to let you know, if I had put a layer of batting between this fabric and this design, I would have stitched this. I could have created a trapunto. I could take scissors, and I wouldn't use these, but I would take some scissors and cut away all of this area, leaving like would be a white fluffy applique. I created my trapunto. At the same time, I practiced my quilting and marked the quilt. And then it's time to put the sandwich together and simply quilt this. And that's what I'm going to do now. As I've done before, I want to start at the top of my feather and work my way down. So I'm going to bring my needle down and up, bringing that to the top side. I'm going to do one side, a little packing stitch is what I probably do to get started. And then I'm simply going to follow as close as I can to my center spine. Again, don't panic, breathe. Stay as consistent as you can. And that was a little difficult because my left hand kind of got going there. But you can do either side first. I'm going to do the one that's closest to me. And again, I'm going to start by following that first one. Now I can do the second one because it is really close. Keep an even speed with your quilting. Always look ahead. All right, now this is where I can choose to stipple or backtrack and go. Because I'm going to stipple on there around this, I am going to just do a little bit of stipple to work my way to the next spot and then do the next feather. Plume. Go very gently. All right, and then I'm going to move up to the next one, backtracking only on that spine and doing the next one. All right, you can see how I'm choosing to mark my quilt. Isn't that beautiful? Using the water-soluble thread, it will look a little bit ragged for a while because the quilt needs to be immersed in water, which is what I do when I block my quilt to get it, ready for binding. I actually block my quilt and square it before I bind it. But this is going to look beautiful. I'm going to quilt this and then do stipple quilting and then show you what it looks like. And then I'm going to immerse it in water to dissolve the threads and show you the final result. And so here is the finished quilted feather with stipple. And you can see the water-soluble thread. I hope you can see that I'm not always perfectly on that line, but that water-soluble thread is going to go away, and nobody's going to know if I missed a line or not. And that entire marking process gave me an opportunity to practice. And again, if I had another layer in that marking process, this would be double layer thick, and this would only be one layer thick because I would cut that extra batting out away. You have to be very careful if you're cutting because you don't want to cut your quilt top, but I think it turned out really beautiful. And here it is. So I immersed this in water. I just hand washed it and I've left it out to dry. I want you to see how pliable this is. Stable Stuff Poly, all right, this is what it looks like. This is not a paper-based product. It is polyester-based, so I tore away what I didn't need. I left the stabilizer underneath all of the feather, just so you know, but I tore it away because I didn't need it out here, but it is still in here, and the quilt is soft, pliable. It's something that I have loved for years. I do want to just give you a warning. When you're using Stable Stuff Poly and you use it under applique or you use it under embroidery, you do not immerse it until it is completely sandwiched and quilted, because you want all of that to stay in. It will fall apart, it will disintegrate, and it will become a soft layer inside. But this is how I have accurately marked many of my quilts. This is Bohemian Rhapsody. It was marked exactly like this. My Dad's Lone Star was marked exactly like this. And even this cool kaleidoscope quilt was marked on those corners using this method. I hope you've enjoyed exploring this. I hope that you'll give it a try. Stable Stuff Poly should be in your arsenal at all times, and it both comes in, again, it comes in 8.5 by 11 printing sheets, or sheets that you can use that are small, but also in the tube, so you can have it for larger applique projects. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. So that is my go-to method for marking a quilt. You've got questions, and I'm going to have some answers for you here. So thank you, Jan, for saying I rocked your world, because I really think this is a great way to do it. And more importantly, not just marking the quilt, because you get to practice quilting your designs before you actually have to quilt your designs. And that's why I say tracing is not going to teach you that. You're also going to be only on the quilt top. There's no batting, there's no backing. You're just putting the design on Stable Stuff Poly on the back side of your quilt, but you're having to manipulate the entire quilt because you're not doing that in sections. Your quilt top is finished. So you're starting to feel more comfortable about manipulating one layer of fabric. You're going to feel a little bit better when you now have a sandwich with batting and backing and everything. So yes, I do mark the entire quilt top and then make the sandwich, Sue Ellen. That's exactly what happens. And Suzanne, my feed dogs are down. Everything that you saw there was free motion, feed dogs down. I am moving the quilt. That is typically my go-to method. There are times when I forget to lower the feed dogs, but the reality is they're meant to be down. Sally says, since the water-soluble thread will go away, are you not concerned about going back over the same lines? As you saw at the end, I even pointed out I did not hit every line perfectly. I was more concerned about making a smooth loop, and if I slightly missed, it doesn't matter, but the overall feather is going to be right where I want it, and I'm not going to have to worry about designs rubbing off, and I'm not going to have to worry about markings staying in my quilt. Bobbin thread. So when I'm doing the marking, I have water-soluble thread in the top and water-soluble thread in the bobbin. I know I said it briefly, but that takes a minute to sink in. You don't have to, but it's my method because I want everything to go away. I don't want to have a little tension issue where I have a real thread poking up through a hole. So when I'm marking the quilt, I have water-soluble thread in the top and in the bottom. Won't the printer ink bleed into the fabric? Mary, I always suggest that you make a sample with your fabrics before you do it on your quilt. But as I mentioned, instead of using the full copy setting, take your setting to the lightest setting. That ink is going to be on top of the paper and your fabric is through under here. So that's going to help. And then on this side, you'll have a layer of batting before the fabric. So I have not found it to be a problem. But if you are using really see-through, the lemon yellow cream, delicate blue, you might want to do a sample on that. But I've not had that problem. So you do this with the back on the top, then go back and quilt it from the front with regular threads. So the quilt top is turned upside down. The seams are facing me. The stable stuff poly design goes on the back of the quilt top, which is why if the position of the design matters, if you've drawn it to be on the front, you have to do a copy reverse on the back. Many of my designs are just symmetrical, so I don't have to worry about that. But just another thing. So Cindy, that's for your answer. You're welcome, Sherry and Melanie. Thank you so much. I did tear away the paper from around the feather, but I left it under the feather just because. So, and if you do the trapunto, you would then cut it around the feather, leaving only the batting and the stabilizer at the feather and not on the outside of the feather. Cindy, I've not done this on my long arm, but I do not think that the tension settings are going to change. The stabilizer is basically like fabric. I do immerse my quilts. I would not spritz it. I wouldn't spritz it because I just find that I'm going to end up with a little bit of glue in there. So if I'm using water-soluble thread, I am truly, I've tried to spritz it in the past, but once it's dried, I can go in there at the seam and just feel a little bit of, I just don't like it. So that's me. I have never had my needle get jammed up on washable thread. Had the thread break, but the water soluble thread is so delicate. It's something you need to make sure that your machine is behaving well when you're using it. But even if it breaks every now and then, you just thread it and keep going because it may not look pretty, but it's gonna dissolve. It's gonna go away. Love that double batting. That's great for trapunto. Thank you so much, Dot. That is such a kind comment. And we do have the stabilizer, the Ricky Tim Stable Stuff Poly at the Quilt Show shop, and there's a link. If you go down into the comments, we've got a link on all of those for you. Cindy, thank you so much. Thank you, Nick. Wendy, thank you. Thank you. And very interesting. Great job. Sue Ellen needs an emoji because her brain is exploding. Look, you guys, it does not take, you draw it once, you copy it as you needed, then you just stitch it and you get all of that practice. You're adding a tad expense because the stabilizer and the water soluble, but for me, the end result is amazing. So Brenda, as I said, I've not yet used it on my long arm, but it is 100% possible to do that on the long arm. I would have to put my quilt top only on the long arm upside down and then do the long arming to mark it, or I could do that on my domestic, and then once it's marked, I could put it on the long arm and then just quilt over it that way. So those are the things that I would suggest. Can you guys remember I'm a newbie long armor? I've been in domestic. All the quilts you've seen from me in my life mostly have all been done on a domestic. I've just within the last year and 2 or 3 months become a little bit more accomplished on a long. Thank you so much, Nanette. Yeah, I mean, once you've got it done, whatever you do to baste your quilt, I like 505 spray basting. If it's a big quilt, I may spray baste it and use water-soluble thread. I do not love safety pins. I leave them out of my life, so I do not baste with safety pins. I'm going to try it. There's no need for a different needle. I used, on that sample, I used an 8012 Schmetz top stitch needle. That's what I used, which is what I use for almost everything for quilting. All right, you guys, that's all the questions I see. I hope you'll go back and watch this again if you need to, and that you can let it sink in, and just be great to have you doing that. You guys, I'll have some more garden stories for you, and I'm headed off to Ireland to meet Hugo. Going to Spain and Portugal next May, and at the very, very beginning of this, I gave you that link. So if you're interested, please check it out. We're going to do some quilty things, but mostly we're just going to travel together, enjoy, explore, and I do know where a couple of quilt shops are in Lisbon, and I know there's one in Porto. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching today. It was really fun for me to put that together and share it with you. So I'll say goodbye, and until next time.